Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. Hey, if you like the video, click that like button and click subscribe so that you'll get notifications whenever we post new content. Appreciate you watching. This is the Fat Man. I'm gone. Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. Got a discussion the other day with a guy about how some people prepare or actually even go hunting. And what my thoughts were on that. I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's two types of hunters. I think there is just someone who goes and hunts. Okay? And then I think there is what I consider a tactical hunter. Now, if you think about this in military or police ideals, there's a huge difference in just going into a place and going into a place tactically. Okay, if you go into a place just walking in, okay, you're just unprepared, maybe no bulletproof vest, no extra magazines, you don't know the layout of the building, you don't know how many people's in the building, you don't know if there's hostiles or friendlies. That, in my opinion, is just the guy that just walks in, okay? A tactical guy, okay, a tactical guy, if he's going to go in there, he's going to want to know the layout of that building. He's going to want to know how many entrances and how many exits there are. He's going to want to know who's in the building, if it's possible. Are they friendly? Are they foe? Are they who I'm looking for? Okay, well, when you're a tactical hunter, it works out basically the same way, okay? You find an area that you want to hunt, but you base it on several things. Is there food there? Is there a bedding area there? Are there does there? Okay, is it private or public land? Is there a lot of hunting pressure around that area? Okay, and then once you find all that out, then there's the actual getting there, and you need to find out where you want to go into that area from based upon several different things. What time of day is it? Am I going in before daylight? Am I going in at noon so I can do an afternoon hunt? What time am I going in? Is this more of a feeding area or a bedding area that's going to dictate what time I need to go into it? Okay, well, if it's a feeding area, you don't want to try to walk into it before daylight, because more than likely the deers are in there and you're walking in or riding in on your ATV or whatever, that's going to run them all out. So if it's a feeding area, you're going to want to hunt more in the afternoon. You want to sit up there 12 or 1 o'clock, find you a good quiet place downwind of that feeding area to get settled in and being quiet and everything being settled down where you haven't run any animals off and nothing knows you're in there, and you ain't got a squirrel or a crow or something sitting over top of you hollering every breath to let everybody know in the woods that you're there. Okay, you've been there a while and you're settled in, and now when the sun starts setting and the deer's coming into their feeding area, you're in the right place. Okay, same way with a bedding area. If it's a bedding area, you don't want to wait until 12 or 1 o'clock to go in there and try to get set up, because if you do, more than likely you're going to make enough noise coming in that you're going to spook out whatever might be bedded in the thicket or in the fence or whatever you're going to hunt, and it's going to run away and you ain't going to get a shot at it. So you have to think about that tactically. Now, a lot of folks, I think, sometimes just depend on fish, kind of like fishing. Okay, that looks like a good spot, you know, or over there looks like a good spot. I'm just going to go over there and set up without really thinking about the things that are important. It's going to help you find a deer when you're looking for one. Number one, above all, in my opinion, if you're going to try to kill big bucks, you got to hunt does. That's the thing. I don't worry about trying to find a place where there's a buck. If I can find a place before season starts that there's 8 or 10 does hangs around there all the time, you see them every evening, you see a place where they're crossing the fence or a trail they're going in and out of, and you can consistently see them at least every couple of days, don't worry if there's a buck there that you've seen any sign of. If those does are there, believe me, when the fun stuff starts, that buck's going to show up, because those does, they're not out looking for a buck. Okay, they're not traveling an area trying to find a buck. Those does want one of three things. They want a place to lay down and not be able to be seen and be detected easily. They want a place to find food, and they want a place to raise their young. That's it. If they find a small area that there's not a lot of hunting pressure nobody ever comes into, and they can do those 3 things in that area, they'll stay there. They won't wander far from that at all. They'll probably stay in a 3/4 of a mile circle their whole life unless something runs them out. And that being said, then now that buck who's run that territory to try to run other bucks away, now he's going to come into that 3/4 mile area, and he's going to try to stay with those does, or he's going to be sniffing the ground all the time trying to find that one doe that's in estrus and get after her so that he can do what he wants to do. And a lot of times you'll find one making a mistake when he finds that girl that smells right, and that's when he'll make that foolish mistake, and he'll come out while it's still daylight. He'll walk out into an open spot. But if you don't think about it tactically, then a lot of times you'll blow your opportunity to kill a deer like that. Another thing that you got to think about tactically is, what kind of area am I hunting in? Am I hunting in an area where there's a lot of other people, or there may even be houses close to it? Do I have permission to hunt that area? Yeah, but I still have to think about, is it safe to hunt with a high-powered rifle in there? Do I need to hunt with a bow? Do I need to put a climbing stand on a couple of trees, or maybe even put a ground blind up, and that way that I can hunt the trails but hunt with a bow and still have a chance to kill a deer in that area that's close to houses or close to farm animals, but I don't have to worry about a bullet passing through whatever I shoot, or if God forbid I miss and I hit somebody's house or hit somebody's cow or their dog or something like that, or a horse. And because if you don't think of it in ways like that, you could find yourself in a bad spot. And another thing that you got to think about is equipment. When you're going into the woods to go deer hunting, especially if you're like me and you have trouble walking and it's hard for you to walk long distances, you got to think about, how heavy is my load going to be? Okay, so number one, I try to really think about how close I can get to the area that I want to hunt on my ATV, so that way I got something that can haul that weight, and it ain't me, to get it as far as I can, so that when I actually have to gather all my stuff up to go to where I'm going to hunt, I have to pack it the least amount of distance that I have to, so that I'm not tired and I'm not worried about trying to hurt myself, especially if it's in rough terrain and you got to go through an area that's got rocks or something, because chances are, if you get out and you have a mechanical injury and you break an ankle or a knee or a leg or something, and you don't have a cell phone with you, you're in real trouble if you didn't tell somebody where you were going. Now, that's another thing that you can think about tactically, is that when you're going to go hunting, try to tell someone, this is where I'm going to go, this is where I'm going to be. Don't deviate from that. If you tell somebody, I'm going down to the pond on Farmer John's place and I'm going to set up in that fence row right behind it, go there. Don't decide on your way down there, I think I'm going to go to Cousin Earl's farm, it's on the other side of the county, and go set up. Because if something happens, you don't never know. You know, a different hunter could fire a shot and a stray bullet hits you, and maybe it goes through your cell phone and you can't call somebody, but you're still alive, you're going to live for a while, you're bleeding, but you can't get back to your vehicle, and it starts to get dark, and your family's, okay, well, he said he was going down to hunt behind Farmer Brown's pond down there in the fence row, that's where he should be. Well, they send the law and the rescue people and the fire department to look for you, and you're nowhere to be found, and you may sit over there in Cousin Earl's fence row and bleed to death when you could have been saved. So make a plan. Tell somebody, tell your wife, tell one of your hunting buddies, tell somebody where you're going, so if something happens and you don't come out when you're supposed to, they know where to go look for you. Another big thing that you need to look at is hunting pressure, of how many people is going to be hunting in and around that area. And if there's other people hunting in that area, is there any way you can find out where they're going to be hunting, for 2 reasons. Number one, so you know where not to shoot. And number two, you know where it's best to set up so that you're not just over the hill from somebody else. Because I know of fist fights that have broken out because somebody was 75 yards away from someone around a ridge point and they didn't know it. And a big deer come walking around the hill that guy had been hunting for a long time, and the guy sitting 75 yards away from him that he didn't know was there poked a hole in him. Sometimes you can't avoid it, you know, it's just going to happen. But it's best that if you can find out from the landowner what is the hunting pressure? Is there somebody else going to be hunting in here? And if there is, can I get that guy's name and his contact information so I can get with him and kind of see where he's going to be hunting, so I don't step on his toes and he don't step on mine? Stuff like that, just being courteous. Now, another thing, if you're hunting on private land, on somebody else's land, and this is very important, and you shoot a deer and it runs from that land and goes onto someone else's land and then lays down, okay, do you have permission to go on that guy's property and go track that deer up? Most of the time, farmer's not going to say anything. He may not let you hunt on his land, but if you shoot a deer and it went onto his land and before it went down, most of the time they won't say a thing to you about going and getting it. But if you think there's going to be an issue, you don't know for sure, then you need to ask the farmers around the area where you're hunting just to make sure. I mean, most generally you can get phone numbers from the guy that owns the property you're hunting on. You can make 2 or 3 phone calls a week before season and they'll tell you you had no problem. But in the event that you're not sure and there is a problem, call your local game warden and ask if he won't come out and go with you, so that if there's an issue that you've got somebody there, kind of maybe not to back you up, so to speak, but just to kind of help out, that if there becomes an issue, if that farmer comes rolling up there and thinks you're bothering something, you've got somebody there with you. No, man, we ain't here to hurt nothing or to steal nothing. We're just trying to find a deer that was shot. Another thing tactically that I don't think a lot of people put enough emphasis on is preparation stuff that you'll have in case of. What kind of first aid stuff do you carry? Do you carry anything? I'm notorious for not carrying nothing. And I mean, not putting anything in my backpack when I go into the woods that has to do with first aid. But now I try now that I put a little first aid pack together. It's got a little snake bite thing in it, which most of the time for deer season, you don't got to worry about that. But it's got some gauze and a pretty stout piece of rubber in it that if I needed to make a tourniquet or something to that effect. There's a lot of different stuff you could put in, but you know, I mean, as far as first aid stuff, my opinion, the number one thing you need to make sure you got with you is make sure that you got some kind of communication device, whether it be a two-way radio or it be a cell phone, something that you can get in contact with somebody. I don't recommend flares. Some people have mentioned that, but the problem with that is majority of the time you're hunting in the fall of the year, leaves are falling. Like right now here in Kentucky, it's dry as a bone. And if you put a flare off in the woods right now, the chances of you setting in a forest fire in a few minutes is going to be a real good chance that that's going to happen. Another thing that I think that if you think about, a thing that's kind of like thinking about tactical stuff when you're hunting, especially if you're muzzleload hunting or if you're bow hunting, especially off the ground. In Kentucky now we're getting a lot of black bears. We have mountain lions here. We got red wolves here. We got coyotes by the boodles. I mean, we've got a lot of animals here now that could potentially, maybe in a bad situation, you ain't had anything to eat, try to make a prey animal out of a human being. And if you've got a single shot weapon, muzzleloader, or you've got a bow and you're on the ground, and you see that situation is going to happen, that you need to defend yourself from that animal, but you miss, or that first shot doesn't stop him, you can and should carry something with you that you can use for defense. Now, myself personally, anytime I go in the woods, I have my semi-automatic pistol on my side. Now, you can't use that per se most of the time in assistance with you killing an animal, but you can sure enough use it in defending yourself from an animal that may try to hurt you. But that's another thing you need to think about. Also, you need to think about tools that you may or may not need to aid in removing your game from the area where you hunted. Do you got a piece of rope? Is it rope that's going to be strong enough and it's not, you don't have to worry about it breaking and stuff, so you can hook to that deer's horns and drag him out, or whatever you got to do with it. A lot of people now have got the little kits that you can make one of the little sleds that you lay a deer on and pull him out. They even come with little wheels you put on them and everything. Those are pretty neat little deals, and they go right on a backpack. They lock right onto a backpack. But personally, myself, I'm thinking that's adding a whole lot of weight to what I got to carry, and I don't want to do that. I got enough weight to carry as it is. So, but there's a lot of different tactical things that you can think about when you're hunting, and there is some tactical safety stuff that you need to think about also. When I go into an area to hunt, after I've went in and found where I want to set up, as soon as I get set up, the first thing I'll do is I will scan my surroundings really well. I'll try to make a mental picture of what's going on in every direction. Where can I see? Where can I not see? What is just over? Do I know what's just over that next rise? Do I know what's on the other side of that thicket of trees? And that way, that if an issue comes up and I need to make a shot, I know what's on the other side of that shot that I'm making before that animal walks out. Because if that animal walks out and I'm first thinking about it, I'm not thinking about what's past him, I'm thinking about that animal. So I need to do that beforehand. Another thing, and I have seen so many people do this, and it scares the crap out of me every time I see someone do it. They'll sit down in the area where they're going to hunt, get settled in, or they're on their way and they stop every little bit to scan the area. They'll throw their gun up and look through their scope and scan the area to try to see what they can see through their scope. And most of the time, because it's set up to be a natural thing to happen, when they put that gun up, their finger goes in the trigger well. And that's crazy. I mean, that is nuts. Number one, you should never, ever, ever, ever use the scope on your weapon as a spotting scope. You should use your scope to put as a sight that you're putting on what you intend to shoot at, and it should never be pointed at anything unless you intend to shoot it. You should have a pair of binoculars, a spotting scope, whatever you think you might need to do that with. But I've seen so many people do it, and the problem with that is it may not never be an issue. You got the safe turned on your rifle. You're not going to pull the trigger. You know how to handle your gun. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of people every single year accidentally discharge their weapon. A lot. And if you're scanning an area looking, see what you can see, and you just happen to see a flash of orange and you go back to it, when you go back to it, your gun accidentally goes off. You can't reel that bullet back in. Once it's gone, and whatever the cause and effect is at the other end of it, that's on you once it leaves that barrel. And you could end up with yourself in a bad spot, and maybe a prison term for killing someone or destroying someone's property, killing someone's animal, or injuring someone, something. You know, anything, because that bullet's going to contact something, whether it be a tree or a human being or a cow or a horse or somebody's house or their car. It's going to impact something. That's why you need to make sure when you point that thing at something, it's what you intend to shoot it. So don't use your scope as a spotting scope to look around and survey your area. Get you a little pair of binoculars. You can buy the small ones that are 3 or 4 power, and they'll do the job you need to get you a little bit better idea of where you're at. But like I said, if you do a little research first, if you'll ask people around you what the situation is around you and get permissions to do what you need to do and find out what's here and what's not there, you'll be all right. But that's just some tactical things I think everyone should think about. Because when you're thinking about a tactical hunter, that's not a guy that's got a bulletproof vest on and web gear and a Rambo knife and army boots. It's a guy that's got this doing what it needs to do. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. It's the Fat Man. I'm gone.